Does Paco set his own path in life? Do you set your own path in life? The circumcision of the heart, the circumcision of the circumcision, I think that has something to do with Balak's sin. I'm going to get into that more another day. You may line up for your tattoo removal anytime now. Your tattoo taboo will be removed after you catch my drift. I think that the people that, a lot of people got talked into getting tattoos right now. They're going to track you. They're going to be able to say, "Oh, what were you thinking? You're going to want to explain your tattoos." I'm going to explain, this is my son. This is this and that. This is my what wife, what husband. 18, 19-year-old girls. I got to get a tattoo on my leg, man. Sure, okay. I knew a boy named Colby Parker. I was on a path as a child then, also, but I was only interested in his sister Penny. That was her name. She was skinny. I named a girl in my book after her, Penny Money. Did I write a book about a televised revolution in 2008 or not? I want to keep this easy. The way the way they would have you take it easy. I did. Was it about the people who lived in caves and then were freed? And they were living in the caves because of some pandemic and it was over. And the debate was how to release these people from the cave back into the world after a mud flood event where they hid in caves. It was my path, not yours, to write that. I invite you to hear his voice. Sorry, I am not able to open your ears to his voice or your eyes to see his truth. You think you had or I had a choice? So you think you chose your own path? I would not debate me either. It's no wonder after all these years, people aren't lining up to debate me. Paco, Salt Paco. Welcome everybody to Mud Flood was Armageddon. The Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. While I patiently wait for RJ, he's back and probably trying to log on. I want to show this fair use disclosure, a disclaimer from way back in 2014. Wow. So I think I have a few pictures to look at. We might as well do that. Downloads. So we're going to look at this Kamiokande catastrophe accident. I clipped that because it's November 22nd, 2001. November 22nd is a pretty big day on the calendar ever since JFK. So there's that. The neutrino event, that's that. They were chasing these neutrinos back in 1970. November 13th, the world's first observation of a neutrino. Huh. RJ sent me a video where this guy said it's funny, they put fluoride in water, but it burns holes in concrete. Yeah, that's cool. Looks like a heart. I think that's probably why RJ sent it to me. Unlimited energy if you learn about it. So they say. So it was a cascading failure, fairy tale failure. Look at all those Patreons. So I looked up this U.S. veterans housing college policy, because I just caught a university trying to cheat me out of thousands of dollars, and they did. And the United States fair housing law does not ban discrimination based on military or veteran states. Many state and local governments do, however, disabled veterans are protected under federal fair housing law. So this is how to deal in college, on campus housing and things. So they did not do their job at all, and they didn't care. You know what they did? They just lie right to your face, the same way they lie about history. We could have no idea. Is this a movie set? Was this real life? Some people going to do their work, and other people are going to go say, hey, I got to go get me some shoes. We're going to just look at it. This struck me as interesting. The rickshaw and the sedan chair. This could be a postcard from, oh man, they found it in, I don't know, Wisconsin or something. But it was hanging on a wall going, hey, look what they do in China when they want to get around on this one road. That road looks well traveled. He could walk, but why? If he got out and walked, these two guys would lose a job. I guess that's the way they look at it. Thank you for that 5x5, says yo. Another history lesson before we get to the lesson. The history of the largest watch manufacturer in the world. It's one of those things, just all of a sudden. They went from being able to make, a few a month to let's everybody in the world get one of these. And, right now, with the working man watch was a collector's item.
Market share. From the beginning, the company maintained its general offices in Chicago, Illinois. However, these were all eventually transferred to the main plant in Elgin by 1940. During World War II, the U.S. watch industry was halted and ordered by the government to stop all watch production, and Elgin immediately moved into the defense industry, manufacturing military watches, chronometers, fuses for artillery shells, altimeters, and other aircraft instruments. Started. 5 acres of land and $25,000 from the townspeople.
Thanks,
the requested location was on an abandoned farm because of the American Civil War, which was not for sale unless the entire farm was purchased, the owner stated. 4 local Elgin businessmen stepped up and purchased 71 acres of farmland.
I wonder if they were in the Freemasons. I'm just to show this to be a minute. Let's occupy the Starfort building and say, yeah. You can make knives, you can do anything you want, or you can make watches and invent it and corner the market.
$500,000, which was used to build their watch factory. The project, which took about 1 year, included lathes and machines.
Doesn't it always take about 1 year? That's what the other guys say.
Seemingly impossible levels of precision. The idea for success was to mass produce high.
Is that children and women in the workforce? Were they glad to have a job, or did they have to have a job? I mean,
quality pocket watches using machine-made, interchangeable parts. By today's standards, this seems like an obvious approach, However, up until about 1850, all watches were made by hand.
Wow. And then they went to
The company
this.
recognized and saw a need for good quality, reliable watches that could be sold and repaired
Yeah.
relatively inexpensively using factory made replacement parts. Repaired
With
relatively
children and
inexpensive
women.
was the key. Before this, if a watch was damaged, replacement parts would need to be manufactured by hand to fix the problem. The goal wasn't to produce the
What a
best
reset
watches
we've
or the
had.
cheapest, but rather to dominate the substantial middle ground of the watch market, which they did for a number of decades. The first movement Elgin produced was an 18 size BW Raymond.
That's pretty nice. Look at that. They went from making a few by hand to children, women with some comb over, saying, "You're doing a great job. Keep it up. There'll be food on your table
Model
tonight."
named for Mayor Benjamin W. Raymond and the company's then president, which sold in April of 1867 for the price of $115.
1867. Look at that.
16 size watch models were redesigned as smaller size watches for general use. The prices were reduced, resulting in an increase in demand. With their watches being affordable, the factory was now turning out 25,000 watches each year. In
Wow.
1873, the first stem wind BW Raymond movement was placed on the market. The product line included at least 14 different grades, and production was estimated at 100,000 movements per year. Elgin became best known for
All
producing
right.
these working man's mid grade
So you got the working man Dura power main spring. Getting that down. I think I'll save these in case RJ can pop in and we're going to go over. These are planned Bible study. This is where I got that. Some YouTube person was talking about this Pottinger Street. And where do you how do you really date these old pictures? Well, we saw that one. Yeah, so that what struck me is that it is not written in Chinese. This is a poster for somebody. Getty Images. Ugh. Everywhere was just look at that. What do you got going here? Some sort of gasoline cans? Does that look photoshopped? Oh, they're carrying them. He's got them balanced there, so they're probably empty. I thought it was stones in a stack. I didn't know it was a guy checking them out.
That wouldn't be possible if they had zero mass. Anything with zero mass has to travel at the speed of light and is therefore frozen in time. But the three flavors of neutrino all create different light signatures on the detectors. Remember the atmospheric cascades caused by cosmic rays I mentioned earlier? Those cause a disproportionately high number of muon neutrinos to pass through the detector. So, by observing the relative number of signatures for each flavor over the course of a day, researchers were able to plot out a changing flux as these excess muon neutrinos changed
Oh,
to
blah,
other
blah,
flavors as
blah.
the Earth and therefore the atmosphere rotated below the detector.
Oh, so they're basing it all on a globe. But at the 7 minute mark, look at the money well, here, this was kind of interesting.
In the case of a solar panel, that flow of electrons is an electric current. But in our case, we may only receive a single photon, which we wish to somehow detect. The single electron it knocked out of the plate needs somehow amplifying. So a charged electrode guides it to the first of a series of charged plates. The first plate may be at, say, positive 50 volts, so it attracts the electron, which strikes it at high speed and ejects more electrons. These are then accelerated to the next plate, which is at higher voltage, say 100 volts. So these electrons strike that plate and knock out even more electrons. This process repeats down the chain with more and more electrons being ejected each time. And note, this is another example of a cascade occurring. And we haven't...
Okay, so this is how they spent their money starting in 1970, and they needed these guys to do it.
No normal photomultipliers. Prior to their construction, the largest photomultipliers available in the West
You got to
were
have the
20 centimeters in
vacuum,
diameter.
like a sealed
Those
dome
from the Super Kamiokande
on a
are
flat
whopping
Earth.
50 centimeters in diameter, and they are truly objects of beauty. I mean, just look at that thing. Manufactured by Hamamatsu, the model R3600 tube is not only extremely sensitive, but has a collection area larger than any other tube on the
Need
market.
10,000 of them.
These line the interior walls of the tank, giving the Super Kamiokande its
That's a
distinctive
lot.
appeal. Mildly successful, performing many neutrino detections.
Sure.
also detecting-
On the globe.
It's a good job they were designed to last the lifetime of the experiment and would only need to be purchased once. Right?
Wrong.
Anyway, with all my foreshadowing in place and a good
Watch this
picture of
guy.
the physical
You see him making
configuration
it?
of the detector, we're finally ready to skip forward to the day of... Not cheap in real terms, but I can't help but feel $10,000 is a bit of a bargain for a custom-blown 50-centimeter glass tube just like that. Of course, having to fork out for 11,000 of them would be a bit of a different matter. It's a good job they were designed to last the lifetime of the experiment and would only need to...
So you got to see that part. So anyway, they all failed. Starting, they were able to track it. Somehow when they laid some styrofoam on it and walked on it, when they were repairing it,
tank was empty, styrofoam boards were placed directly on top of the photomultipliers on the floor of the facility. Staff were able to walk on these boards, which would distribute the load and theoretically...
don't worry, they got it fixed and up and running. And they're tracking the globe. They got new, better ones.
A shockwave from an imploding tube and hopefully prevent a repeated cascade failure. And the Super Kamiokande has operated ever since. It detects...
That away. They won a Pulitzer Prize. What's this? Why did God use a lying spirit to deceive Ahab? Oh, and they accept it as, they don't understand it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Do you believe that? I know there's probably about 10 people watching right now. I want to say hi. So there's 11 people watching right now. Have you heard that? God sent a lying spirit, and we just have to so many mysterious. I doubt it. I doubt if God sent a lying spirit. Let's look at that. Let's look at it in 2 Chronicles. It's practically the same thing. I wanted to make sure I was sharing. It's Jehoshaphat. He's the good guy here. Not Ahab. He's the bad guy. He's a bad king. And he used to bring what? To Ramoth Gilead? Abundance of sheep and oxen. He'll sacrifice to a god. He was doing it to the wrong god. But for some reason, Jehoshaphat Ahab, that's Jezebel's boy. Anyway, they go in verse 4. Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, not Judah, inquire first for the word of the Lord. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, 400 of them. Remember, like the 400 prophets of Baal? He asked them the question, shall we go up to battle in verse 5 against Ramoth Gilead, or shall I refrain? And all 400 of them said, go up, for God will give it into the hand of the king. God did not. It doesn't. God didn't send their lying spirit to those 400 people to be false prophets. They're, hey, look at me. I'm a born false prophet. They're God. They had the spirit of I love mammon. The king, you can do it, king. You can do it. Let me get back to the reading here. We're picking up in verse 6. But Jehoshaphat said, okay, 400 sound like a broken record. Is there not here another prophet of the Lord of whom we may inquire? Now, there was the Micaiah, the lesser known prophet. He didn't get his own book. There is yet one man, prophet, thanks for not, by whom we may inquire of the Lord, Micaiah, the son of Imlah, but I hate him. I hate him. For he never prophesies good concerning me, said poor Ahab. Always evil. And Jehoshaphat said, let not the king say so. Then the king of Israel summoned an officer and said, bring quickly Micaiah, the son of Imlah. Now the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, were sitting in a star fort on their thrones. You've all seen the pictures. Arrayed in their robes, and they were sitting at the threshing floor at the entrance of the gate of Samaria. And all those 400 were prophesying before them. And Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, made for himself horns of iron and said, thus says the Lord, with these you shall push the Samaritans until they are being destroyed. Where's God saying, I will send a lying spirit to make them lie like that? Push the Syrians until they are destroyed. And all the other prophets agreed and said, go up, go get them, triumph. The Lord will give it into the hand of the king. The messenger who went to summon Micaiah said to him, behold, the word of all the other 400, they are in one accord, and they are favorable to the king. Let your word be like the word of one of them. We're waiting for the God to say, I really am going to send a lying spirit to him. Not that this is Micaiah making fun of these people. But Micaiah said, as the Lord lives, what my God says, that I will speak. And when he had come to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I refrain? And he answered him. And remember, being mocked in Bible times was bad. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I can imagine Micaiah saying, go up and triumph. They'll be given into your hands. I'll be trying to sound sarcastic. Because immediately the king said to him, how many times shall I make you swear that you speak to me nothing but the truth in the name of the Lord? And so Micaiah says, I saw all of Israel scattered on the mountains as sheep that have gone astray with no shepherd. But we know that said later too, but I add the part about that. And the Lord said, these have no master, let each return to his home in peace. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, did I not tell you that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? And Micaiah said, therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing on his right hand and on his left. And the Lord said, who will entice Ahab, the king of Israel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead. And one said one thing, and another said others. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord, saying, I will entice him. And the Lord said to him, by what means? And he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. I think that's Satan doing that. And he said, you are to entice them, and you shall succeed. Go out and do so. Because this is the end written from the beginning. And there are certain times. I mean, was Peter allowed to be sifted as sand? Did Paul suffer so much because he was at one time a murderer of Christians? Yes, forgiven, but he still reaped what he sowed. Did I have gangrene? Youch, ouch, it hurts, but I can't feel it now. So it went on like that. Then Zedekiah, the son of Chenaanah, came near and struck Micaiah on the cheek and said, which way did the Spirit of the Lord go from me to speak to you? And that reminds me of the people that struck Jesus and said, who struck you, Mr. Prophet? Verse 24. And Micaiah said, behold, you shall see on that day when you go into an inner chamber to hide yourself. And the king of Israel said, seize Micaiah and take him back to Ammon, the governor of the city, and to Joash, the king's son, and say, thus says the king, put this fellow in prison and feed him on meager rations of bread and water until I return in peace. And Micaiah said, if you return in peace, the Lord has not spoken by me. And he said, hear, all you peoples, plural. It's getting pretty exciting. So the king of Israel and the king of Judah went up to Ramoth Gilead. And Ahab said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into battle, but you wear your robes. And the king of Israel disguised himself, and they went into battle. Now the king of Syria had commanded the captains and his chariots, fight with neither small nor great, but only with the king of Israel. As soon as the captains of the chariots saw that Jehoshaphat, they said, there is the king of Israel. Well, it was really the king of Judah. So they turned to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out, and the Lord helped him. God drew them away from him. For as soon as the captains in the chariot saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. Now, do you believe in predestination or the end from the beginning? Okay. And I'm not sure now if this was Jezebel's Ahab, but this Ahab in verse 33 died a certain man when they were running away, being pursued, drew his bow at random and struck the king of Israel between the scale armor and the breastplate. The only vulnerable place. Is that the Lord of the Rings just copying? I think so. Therefore he said to the driver of his chariot, turn around and carry me out of the battle, for I am wounded. And the battle continued that day, and the king of Israel was propped up in his chariot, facing the Syrians until evening. Then at sunset, he died. Now that is Satan doing it to me. It's not that, he allows these things like he allowed Peter to be sifted like sand. Now, I don't know how many of you were able to hear Sergio do an interview with Vara that kind of went sketchy. And I think I need to talk about, Vars, basically said the Bible could be written, I could write a book, I could take some LSD and go talk to a donkey and, write it down and say it was the Bible. Now, that is one of the reasons that, I take to task, Theron, come with me to the Hollow Earth. Remember that was over a year ago now. He was going to go take his family, prove to everybody. And they just can't stand the fact that, I think mushrooms are not a bad thing. Big Paul, the demons are clown guy, he basically is against mushrooms too. That's his whole thing. I took mushrooms and was warned the demons, the Nephilims, are clowns, based only on the Book of Enoch, and tying it into and the people mentioned, of course the Bible's true, but they took it out of the Bible. No, they didn't. Nobody ever took that book serious because it cannot be taken serious. What can be taken serious are the studies that, microdosing, and then some people in taking mushrooms, it is documented by the peer-reviewed science that it helps post-traumatic stress syndrome and other people who have been traumatized by this system that is in the food, the radio, the TV, your cell phones for sure, to keep us addicted to things that should not be. So that's why I was bringing that up. Let's see, where else are we at here? That was the God used the lying spirit. They talk about how they want to help you in the government, but all it does is provide jobs, charities to people about, whatever you have for your money, we want some of it, we'll help you. So they talk about a lot of housing, but they didn't supply them for me. And I got an interview, a couple hours to say, you got to explain how come you lied to my face and doubled my bill. In the meantime, we're dealing with welfare, right? People getting taxed too much. Nothing new. Planned. And do I see a star for it where my mouse is? Anyway,
The epitaph of one Roman boy, for example, records that he had received grain on the 10th day at window 39. Until the 3rd century, those on the dole brought their grain to bakers to be milled and baked. The tomb of Eurysaces, who grew rich turning state-supplied wheat into bread, can still be seen just outside the Porta Maggiore. Under Septimius Severus,
so the people who decided to live in cities and continue to live there, they're saying, how much did it take to feed Rome? One city, but they were the imperial city. Please. It was all this
olive
like
oil,
this.
wine, fish sauce, and luxuries ranging from Indian pepper to hibernating land snails. By one estimate, annual imports of staple foods alone may have exceeded 400,000 metric tons. Of that figure, around half came in the form of the one indispensable part of every Roman's diet: grain. The ancient Greeks had divided food into two categories: bread and things eaten with it. For the Romans, likewise, bread was part of virtually every meal. It has been estimated that the average
So they're saying that they can track, they got rickets from it. And now it's GMO. Which it's hard, but I think there's ways to do it that, just take a little things. Now, if you're like me, you never heard of Doge before. So I thought I would just get you up to speed because all of a sudden, just in the last month, not even the month, and now that's all you hear about. Doge. What are the limits? Well, it's not even actually a government agency. So its power's limited. This guy's in charge. Let's see. It's brand new. Under an executive order, Trump created Doge. It would slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and on the very first day in office, he changed the name of the U.S. Digital Service, and now it's the U.S. Doge Service, Department of Government Efficiency. So there you go. That's brand new. That's what it is, and it's still has to be passed by Congress. They don't really have any authority, but they can point it out. But the Trump is on a roll. He's checking it out. Here's that cascading thing. I guess I wanted to make sure. Here's this thing.
Quote, insane, along with another word we can't repeat here. But what's your take on his political access and influence here in America right now?
Well, Elon, his private sector work, has been very innovative, really fantastic. A lot of private sector people, when they get into government, they don't take the time necessarily to see what the good work
Name
is
one.
or why it's structured the way it is. So I'm
Who?
a little worried.
Who is it?
Particularly with this USAID
Cheney?
stuff. My foundation partners with USAID
I bet
on
they do.
nutrition and getting vaccines out. And, there's incredible people. They're not actually worms that work there.
You want to see a human bobblehead? Watch that one girl.
With USAID on
Look at that.
nutrition
You see her bobblehead?
and getting vaccines out. And, there's incredible people.
Not
they're
worms.
Not actually worms that work there. So, hopefully we'll get
Yeah. Show close up of Whoopi.
some of that work back in shape. In fact, if we don't, you could have literally millions of deaths. So, with aid, people think, wow, how much do we give to these countries? As you said, it's
How
less.
much do we give these countries to put on parades, LGBTQ? The reason that they gave this freedom, I mean, if you really think they're going to let women rule the world, is that where we're at? Is that what you thought? To me, as somebody that is retired, I'm going to give you the history of the retirement. I'm going to just go back to it and give you the history of retirement. The practice of leaving one job or ceasing to work after reaching a certain age, adopted by countries during the 1800s and the 1900s. Prior to that, in the Roman Empire, to the modern nation states of providing pensions to those who had served in the military. In the 1700s, Cotton Mather, I believe he was related to Increase Mather, famous for the Salem witch trials. Tried to make sense of that. Proposed that elderly people should be pleased with the retirement which you are dismissed into. So it may have been like, you're not, everybody was working hard back then. And if you couldn't work hard, it's told, you've heard of the Bismarck, German chancellor, in a maneuver against these socialists, communists, Marxists, who were burgeoning in power, that means growing, and they were strong in power and popularity, announced that anyone over 70 years old would be forced to retire and that he would pay a pension to them. Bismarck drafted the formal request by Emperor William number one. Yeah, I guess it's better than being number two. Those who are disabled from work, that means you're over 70, by age and invalidity, have a well-grounded claim to care from the state to eat our wheat, our bread, and things that you eat with bread. So that's where the modern welfare system came from. In the mid 1800s, the United States said, "Well, let's get some unions going." Something like that. It's kind of socialist in a way, but they did it. And in 1875, you've heard of these guys, began to offer private pensions to their people and a gold watch, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. For a retirement gold watch. I wonder if it was Elgin or something, depending, it probably wasn't a Rolex unless you retired from one of the big things. And there's Corning, they're glass manufacturer. It's a big deal. And that mechanized quickly also. So retirement is kind of new. Something different about it here. Let's see. Picking it up with him or her, whatever. Supposedly, this is the girl that FDR, Delano, the D in that, they made their money from dope. Down with hope and up with opium. The dopium of the masses. She was married to FDR. Well, he was in office 4 terms, 1933 to 1945. He didn't do much presidenting in his 4th term. So anyway, she talked about it, got it put up in there. Old people love their own things even more than young people do. It means so much to sit in the same chair you sat in for a great many years. End quote. However, most resigned individuals wish they could work. The issue was still intense in 1951. Assembled a round table, the Corning Company, to make sense of what you're going to do with retirement and make it more popular. And that became part of their job. And then these big bonus CEOs end up running insurance companies now. How do I keep my people insured? How much can I charge them to share the cost of their insurance and still give them a retirement? By 1910, Florida got to be distinctly available as a retirement destination. That seems early. Retirement communities started to show up in the 1920s and 30s, and the gambling casinos were right there to greet them. The distribution in 1955 of Senior Citizen magazine, which quickly went defunct, contained the first popular usage of the phrase senior citizen. In 1999, the AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, dropped retired from its name and turned into AARP. Well, that's the same thing. AARP dropped the retired and turned into formerly Association of Retired Persons. Now it is what? Still called that. Retirement ages. Moving right along. So the public sector pensions in the United States, no, we're not going to do this. Do you have skin in the game? That's a relatively new phrase, also. Well, different people and companies will have different values attributed to their skin in the game investments. It is never meant to be used as a rude phrase to highlight someone's lower capital. If they don't, it is not an offensive term. It's a common financial phrase that was developed very recently. And now everybody just takes it as something as their version of a gospel. It might not be worth the risk to potentially lose a large percentage of your income for anyone without a large capital. 1997, Computer World published an article turning contracts into partnership, about turning contracts into partnership. This article made clear that large investments were known as having skin in the game, which showed that you were making a big commitment with your own hard-earned money. First mentioned in 1896 in the Wall Street Journal. And it caught on. Now you know the history of that, like Doge. For some reason, skin in the game, you never know what I'm going to think of, right? And I didn't. Knuckle bones. I wanted to look for the game of jacks, JAX, but it gave me knuckle bones because that's what I think of as jacks, these six-pointed jack. Modern knuckle bones consist of 6 points or knobs projecting from a common base. Well, that's not the knuckle bones they were playing with. What are you talking about, lady? Playing knuckle bones. Rolling dice. Whoa, they're really rolling dice back in the day. Look at me, I'm rolling dice. They find them everywhere. They're not human. Don't think about it like that. Children want to just play it. Grab the rocks. I mean, it's like practically the same picture in a way. Throw those rocks. Pick them up before they hit the ground. Right? Look at her. She's throwing the knuckle bone. That's what I think about it as a jack. So as long as there's been around people, they're doing knuckle bones. But they don't really know what is going on with it. It's Asia, Mongolia. It's kind of like that other game, Cat's Cradle, where you do all those tricks with yarn. That's another game like this. Worldwide phenomenon, everyone. 1 second here. I'm looking for a lost piece of machinery. So let's keep it rolling here. So we had the jacks and the knuckle bone, the skin in the game. Tie that into your reset thing. So there also is Jack Stone. That came up. It resembles a toy jack, and it's in you, in your bladder. The urinary tract stone, characterized by its unique appearance with stippled and speculated contour. Okay. We haven't done this today. A lot of different ideas on what those words mean. Hey, there's a stipulated image of Barack Obama. I think that's who it is. Well, they can't all be home runs. I wouldn't say that was a big hit. Game studies. How long you been studying this folklorist? They're out there to make sure we understand it and interpret it right, and they want to consider the Bible like that. Look at the folklore shows what? A woman riding a man. How many times does a old man have to fall for? Hi, I'm a girl that's 1/3 your age, but I love you. I love you. I'm not after your money. I love you. That's what they said. That's gaming the system. Is that what they call it? Just get into gaming the system. Anyway, that's what they do. It's the 1950s. It's now a social science. They incorporate it into their video games, board games, teach people how to be killers, that they're going to someday, no matter how much they just sit around talking, what we know, what the Bible teaches, oh man, what we know that the Bible teaches is that you take the most refined people in the world, put them on a desert island with only enough food and water for 2 people. Within 8 days, they're going to start eating others. It doesn't matter who you are. There'll be some among them that will decide it's time to start eating the other humans. That's us. That's humans. That's the study. 8 days on average. We know we can, we thank God that we can walk through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil because we're called. All right, Jax, game studies, wrapping this up with the beyond the standard model. This is the Large Hadron Collider. And this super Kamiokande, that's what we looked at earlier with the 11,000. Well, they built this underground. Remember, it was the one with the water. Do I have that still up? This thing. They built this because they needed to prove that the Earth is a globe.
It's not well known in the West, so it almost sounds like a made-up cautionary tale. In 2006, replacement photo multipliers were fitted, and this restored the detector to its previous capacity.
Right, because all of the other 11,000 of these that had to be replaced broke down in an instant. But all the hard work of these guys, putting it in, where's that guy? Shows them how they were making it.
And a good picture of the physical configuration of the detector, we're finally ready to skip forward to the day of the disaster.
Oh man, again, to hunt for that guy doing it. There he is. This is how he made 11,000 of them. Cost 10,000 a piece back in 1970.
Now that's not cheap in real terms, but I can't help but feel $10,000 is a bit of a bargain for a custom blown 50-centimeter glass tube just like that. Of course, having to fork out for 11,000 of them would be a bit of a different matter. It's a good job they were designed to last the lifetime of the experiment and would only need to be purchased once. Right?
No. But anyway, it's part of their proof. It's their game. And, what do they, they built it 3,300 feet underground so they could store 50,220 tons of ultra pure water that has been purified to uncommonly stringent specifications. But don't lay down even protected styrofoam and walk on it. Pulitzer Prize winning knuckleheads. You thought I was going to say knuckle bones. So there's a model of it. They built it underground, or so they say. And way to go, you guys.
Has been accused of data fraud. But this time, it's not just any researcher. It is the president of Stanford University, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. His name is Mark Tessier-Lavigne. And a few days ago, he announced that he is stepping down as president of Stanford University due to these allegations that I'm going to tell you about in today's video. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what those allegations are, and more interestingly, I think, is how those allegations had to come.
You know, the thing is that it's just, so now it's Stanford. A couple of years ago, it was Harvard. It was Yale. The first black lesbian had to get fired because, well, it turns out she's good at pleasing lesbians and getting appointed, but not too good at writing her own papers. She turned out to be a plagiarizer. What?
The photo less obvious, and he didn't declare it anywhere in the original paper. Now, Stanford University came forward and put out a statement saying that these mistakes do not affect the results or the interpretation of the results in the study.
Sure.
That's kind of not very reassuring to me as somebody who wants to trust in this kind of research, right? There's clearly been some effort here to manipulate the results to mislead the people reading the paper. If it doesn't affect the results, that's fine, but it should be declared in the paper if that's the case.
Whoa. So academics cheating everywhere. Fraud in stem cell history. This is Gino.
If you're at Harvard right now, I sincerely hope that you're doing okay, because my goodness, Harvard seems like an absolute bloody nightmare. As a recap, first there was the Francesca Gino scandal that resulted in one of the top researchers in all of Harvard University being put on administrative leave due to allegations of data fraud. Then, a few weeks ago, the president of Harvard University, Claudine Gay, has to step down due to lots of different pressure for many different reasons that I covered in this video over here. And just last week, 4 top researchers at the Dana-Farber Institute of Cancer Research, that's Harvard's Cancer Research Lab, were accused of data fraud, and those allegations led to 31 papers having to be corrected and 6 of them being retracted. And I was going to make a video covering...
So, and they just love their peer-reviewed things. And, you know, our Bible people, what we need to know is that we've been down this road of worshiping women before. And the women who stood by a great assembly, all the people who lived in the land of Egypt, the Hebrews, the Israelites, they always wanted to go back to Egypt. And they took Jeremiah and they said, as for the word that you have spoken to us in the name of the Lord, we will not listen to you. But we will do everything that we have vowed, make offerings to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings to her as we did, we and our fathers, kings and officials in the cities of Judah. Not good. So what do? One of the leading figures at the university I go to, Ed Crowther, recently died due to an injury suffered on Christmas Eve as he was carrying a woman down some stairs, and he fell and broke his neck. Recently retired, still working here, volunteering. This is his life. Wow. So anyway, that's what I got, and I'll fill you in on how my meeting at 10 o'clock goes with the people who have tried to rip me off so bad that I just can't imagine, you know, that they lied to my face and never say you're sorry. What kind of world do they live in? Again, it's that DEI world of where, like, the world's set up and released flat Earth. And now, all these years later, 10 years now, right? 2014, 2015, only the people that are true believers stuck with it. And they know who we are now. And now they know who are all the people that got, I'm DEI and I got the tattoo to prove it, The girls, tattoos on their necks and stuff. Sexy. That's what they think. So that's the world we live in. Under the dome on a flat earth nation. The golden age has passed because the mud flood was Armageddon. Then there was that 1,000-year reign and the two reapings. And like I've said before, you're the remnant of the people who complied. You didn't get lobotomized. You didn't get sterilized. You didn't get eugenicized. You got passed along somehow in this time where Satan had to rebuild after the reaping. You didn't want to be in the bad reaping where the angel was told, get the grapes of wrath. Yikes. No, me and my friends will never tell you anything else because we know we're one called, two chosen, predestined, elect. All that predestination, foreknowledge stuff before the foundation of the world means nothing unless you've been predestined to be on your knees at one time confessing you're worthy of death. And the reason that they use these large hadron colliders is because they know it's not just the Kabbalah where everybody has Jesus in their mind. They get in a lot of trouble for killing kids and extracting adrenochrome. They know they need to synthesize the blood of Jesus. They know he bled blood and water. And so they're smashing elements from all over the world, trying to find it so they can synthesize it. Because like I said, they're getting in too much trouble torturing and killing kids to get their adrenochrome the old-fashioned way. There's too many people now. And their population, as the wide road grows, well, you know the rest. Me and my friends will never tell you anything else. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. That's